Welcome to the Perfect Pairing Podcast. This week we are pairing the Luciano Cigars Foreign Affair.
But first, if you don't know us, my name is Chris, and I am the whiskey expert and the cigar noob.
And I'm Adam. I'm the cigar expert and the whiskey noob.
And today we are finding the perfect pairing for this Foreign Affair cigar. So we've got some rye whiskey, some bourbon, and a mix of bourbon and single malt. It's going to be a fun episode. Some pretty different flavors.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good one. We were talking a little bit off camera. This cigar, it's complex, and I was talking about one of these pairings where I was just like, I tried it. I got the bottle a couple weeks ago, and I still can't figure it out. So this is gonna be a good one. But
Yes.
let me go ahead and start off with the trivia question. The trivia question of the week is which part of the cigar, actually, you know what? I'm gonna throw complete curveball. And this is a question for you, Chris. You may get it right away. This is a simple cigar 101 question. So you better, it's easy, man.
All right, we'll see.
What are
Pressure's
the
on.
three parts of a cigar? That's the trivia question. What are the three parts that make up a cigar? There's three different kind of ways that it's constructed. What are these three different ways?
Okay, that one I know at least.
Okay,
I
all
was.
right. That's good. I was like thinking about I was gonna go to the next step. Maybe it was like 102 or 201, if you will, I guess. But this I kept it 101. For any cigar noobs out there, there's three parts to every single cigar out there, premium cigar, I should say. What are they?
Well,
We'll
now I'm
answer at the end
excited
of the
for the
episode.
200 level question, so we'll have to do that as the next cigar trivia. Will have to be
Yeah.
the next step up.
Yep. 100%. No, I'm trying to, take people on a journey here. Take people on a journey.
Absolutely. Um, so as you kind of alluded to in the beginning there, this first whiskey is the one that you really had to spend some time thinking about. I did as well. I was mentioning to Adam before we got started here. I got this whiskey, and this is no joke. This is one of those whiskeys where I was so excited to review it because I got it, I tried it, I was like, this is really good, but I know that it's a craft brand. It's probably super expensive because sometimes I usually don't look up the price until I've already tasted it. That keeps me honest.
Yeah.
Um, and I was like, I'm probably gonna have to pay a ton for it. And I looked it up and it was $45. And I was like, that is a home run right there. I was very excited by it. So our first pairing here is Lodestar American Whiskey with a gorgeous label on it, by the way.
I'm a fan.
Uh, and what's so weird about it is it's a blend of high rye bourbon and American single malt. So it's got a strange balance to it, which we'll get into as we drink it here. But just for those listening who want to know like what it is and just general thoughts on it, it's going to be strange. So if you're exclusively a bourbon drinker, it's got more of a malty flavor to it with that bourbon, but it's going to have familiar notes from your high rye bourbons. And that's all I'll say because we're about to dig into it anyways.
Yeah, and I'll just preface, like we were talking about, it's something that I had for a couple weeks, and I said, you know what, I'm excited to try this. It looks good. It looks complex. I'm feeling a little cocky. I'm like, Chris is teaching me a lot. I'm not a whiskey noob anymore, man. I'm good. Tried it, couldn't figure it out for the life of me, guys. You can see this bottle right here if you're on the video. I'm almost halfway through, and I'm still like, I don't even know what to expect with this cigar. So, just in general, right here with this pairing, I'm 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 excited to keep exploring though, and that's the reason why we're here.
100%. And I've never had this cigar, nor do I know much about it. So this might be a swing and a miss as far as pairings go. But as far as the whiskey goes, I'm a big fan of this whiskey. It is really interesting. And that's my thought with it is if we pair it with something, it should be interesting at the very least because it's an interesting whiskey.
Yeah, what was that like 2 weeks ago that we had that first neutral pairing?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
that was weird.
crazy. At least it probably won't be that.
Mm-hmm.
The cigar has in my opinion, a very light pepper note that I'm a big fan of. I think it's an approachable pepper for those of you out there that may not be like, I don't need a harsh cigar. It's not harsh. It's like a it's like putting pepper on a salad. You're never gonna die from a, pepper on your salad, like a little pepper, obviously.
Hmm.
But it adds that like, oh, there's a little something to this. And that's the way I would kind of talk about this cigar in the beginning when you first light it up.
That's a great way to put it because I was even thinking like just judging based on the wrapper, I thought this was going to have more punch to it,
Hmm.
more of almost like a bite in the back of my nasal cavity, but it doesn't. It's got like a creamy vanilla almost with that just light pepper that lets you know like this isn't super duper light. This isn't, like it's not so mellow that it's boring. It's like vanilla cream with just a touch of pepper right at the back of it. Very interesting.
Yeah. Now, I'm afraid I may be sticking my foot in my mouth on this pairing. I don't think I'm getting a whole lot in the beginning, but we're not very far into the cigar yet.
Yeah. Yeah, right away with the pairing, I think I guess what I would say is it's definitely bringing out the high rye side of this blend. So I'm really noticing the bourbon spice, a little bit of that bite from the oak. It's really mellowing those malty flavors. Uh, so I guess if you're not a fan of the malty side of it, then this actually might be a pairing that you're a really big fan of. And once again, we're just like I'm like one sip and one puff into it, but that was my gut reaction.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Because I mean, again, I on the whiskey side, I'm still like unsure exactly what to expect. But going back to the cigar, I think maybe that's what's pulling out a little more of that spice.
Hmm.
And again, not a harsh spiciness, but kind of, I mean, now it's almost just like a an array of cooking spices, almost like a Montreal steak seasoning.
Ooh, yeah.
Like, see, you're influencing my pairings here. Now I'm getting a little advanced. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Montreal. Look at that.
Right. No, I'm with you though. I would say so far for me, this is antagonistic in that the cigar is having those spices and things kind of leveled up, kind of elevated. And I think the Lodestar is not necessarily being elevated as much as the maltiness is being muted a little bit. Um, so far, that's what I'm getting.
Yeah, but if you like, if I had to say, the Lodestar is pretty much remaining the same. No.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
I'd say if
I'd
anything, the
agree.
maltiness is kind of muted, but it's not nothing in it is really like coming to the forefront and being elevated by the cigar.
Yeah, 100%. So here's a little bonus trivia for everybody out there. I should probably start saving these rather than just wasting them. Other than once we get to a, you know, level 100 or sorry, level 100, LOL, episode 100, I'm gonna be like, when you're farming tobacco, how do we're gonna run out of
Totally.
questions here. But this is a skinnier ring gauge. I wish I had it next to me exactly what it is, but I believe it's in the 40s. I think it's 48.
Hmm.
But it's a skinnier ring gauge when you have. Ooh, that should have been another question. Now I'm just adding it in my
Uh-oh.
head. What is ring gauge? Ring gauge is the round, the diameter really across on a cigar. No, we talked about it in an episode already, didn't we?
Yes, we
Yeah.
did mention it early on, I
So
think.
this is a skinnier cigar. That's really all you need to pay attention to, for the people out there. It's a skinnier cigar, and on a skinny cigar, it is way easier to overheat it because there's less
Oh.
exposed tobacco on, not only on the cut, obviously there's a smaller area, but also on the foot, there's a smaller area for the smoke to come out, for the heat to get released. So it's way easier to overheat a skinny cigar. So if you have something like a Lancero, which is a very long skinny cigar, that's a slow smoke. Maybe you're looking at a minute and a half between puffs. Like, slow it down, and it's very, all the flavors. There's less filler. That is typically less of the flavor side and more of kind of the oomph behind a cigar.
Hmm.
Um, that's why it's a very focused blend. So there's a meaning behind the flavor, so you don't want to overheat it.
Now that's a good thing to know because I think, at least for me, just looking at a skinnier cigar, I'd say, oh, this is a faster smoke because it's so skinny. I'm just
Right.
gonna just burn right through it, you know? That's a great point, though. All that heat's focused down on the end of it. Interesting. Okay. I do think there's something coming out of the cigar a little bit that's more of this like I said vanilla cream. It kind of reminds me of that. It reminds me of a different cigar that I've had, and I certainly don't remember what it was, but but it's like this kind of creamy is the best adjective I can think of for it, along with those baking spices which give it a backbone. So it's not just like mellow and dull. It actually has that backbone to it.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, it's funny. I've had this. It's a newer cigar, for everyone out there. So, if you're in the perfect pairing club, congratulations. You're, you know, probably one of the first people that at least you know in your circles to have this. Let alone in the world, it's not that new. I think it's about a year old, but it's relatively new. Um, but I definitely never really focused on that vanilla note that's right there at the end. But when you said it, I can't not taste it. I'm just getting a very and it's super pleasant. It's a
Hmm.
very just kind of approachableness on the back end and probably just made up that word, but you know.
Yeah, no, especially like on the retro hail. Like when you really try to focus in on it, it really comes out. Like you start to really taste that vanilla. Because just at
Mhm.
the like at a base level, you get the spice. And
Right.
then yeah, kind of like you mentioned on the back end of it. And here's the last thing I'll say about this pairing before we move on here is as I've sat here and continued to smoke, drink, something I do really like about it is if you're into this cigar, the Lodestar kind of gets muted just enough to where it's not. Sometimes they get so muted they just taste like alcohol. It's not doing that. It's like sweet but muted. It's like you don't taste it quite as much, but it's still really sweet, and it still has that bourbon spice to it. So then when you go back and forth, it's actually pretty pleasant. I was really enjoying it, and I think maybe that vanilla sweetness in the cigar is bringing out that sweetness in the Lodestar.
I don't know if I'm getting that as much, but maybe it's just my, my palate on the whiskey side is not ready for that sort of kind of complexity yet. Um, but all I have to really say is, Chris, we got a tough gig here, man. When I go back to smoke, drink, puff, light,
It's
it's a
hard
tough gig,
work.
man.
Somebody's got to do it, though.
We do it for the
Somebody's got to
people,
do it.
really.
Exactly.
If it wasn't for the people out there, you guys listening, you guys watching, I mean, I don't know if I'd be doing this, man. It's tough work.
It is hard work, but somebody's got to do it, and somebody's got to put themselves out there for everybody. And I'll fall on that sword.
Yeah, gladly.
Gladly. All right, so pairing number two. We've had Green River on here before, but we had their bourbon. This is Green River's rye whiskey. So this is a Kentucky straight rye whiskey. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's 95% rye in the mash bill. So this is gonna have those real. Speaking of baking spices, it's gonna have baking spices. It's gonna have herbal notes. It's this one specifically for a rye is actually pretty mellow. So the whiskey folks listening might be like, "Why are you doing a rye whiskey second?" Actually, I'm doing it second because I think this is a little bit more mellow than the barrel foundation that we're about to get to. So I think this one will wreck our palates a little bit less because for a rye whiskey, it's not too aggressive, but it still has those classic notes.
It's very interesting. My experience with rye is getting more and more. It's something that I've actually focused on. Like I don't focus on a lot of things in the whiskey world. I haven't, at least in the past. But over like the past 2 years, I'd say is I'm trying to understand ryes more and the difference. So when I
Hmm.
go to a cigar lounge, I'll get a glass of say it's Michter's rye, and then there's Michter's, I don't know, original. I don't know
Hmm.
what it's called exactly. Um, but I'll do like the original first, and then I'll do a rye with the same cigar as I'm going along. to understand the difference. And I'm a big fan of rye and cigars. I think that the spiciness plays along together, the smokiness plays along together. I think if you can get to that rye game for those whiskey noobs like me out there, it's a pretty fun experience.
Yep, and rye can be difficult because rye is a really good example of the difference between alcohol harshness and punchy flavor notes because rye has a punch to it usually. Usually they are more aggressive, and it's not that the alcohol burns anymore. It's just that the notes are more aggressive. So, like you said, if you can get to it, it is really interesting with a cigar. With this one, already very interesting. I just saw your face
Yeah.
too as I was saying that. Uh, Pretty interesting interaction here.
Hmm.
I don't have I don't have my finger on what exactly it is, but I do know for sure the cigar changed for me pretty drastically. Like it was pretty different.
Hot take here though. This Green River rye, it just turned into an Irish whiskey.
Irish whiskey. Okay, hold on. I gotta try this. Why?
I
Let's
feel like it just took a twist. It reminded me immediately, and I haven't had it in I don't know how long. I know we had Dead Rabbit like a month and a half ago, but I mean, I'm talking like Jameson. Like it was, but it's got that rye twist to it, but it's still, I don't know. That's where just my head went, but I could be, left field.
I think I know why you're saying that. Let me translate here. Let me see if I'm onto something.
Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna translate for you whiskey experts out there what this dude is talking about.
No, I think I know what you mean because it muted some of the more rye spice type of notes and brought out this whiskey has kind of a stone fruit flavor to it that a lot of Irish whiskeys give me, like light stone fruit. Think more like a peach or a nectarine, less like a plum. And it has a little bit of that. It brought it out a little bit, and then there's just a base bone of white sugar sweetness in it, and that came up because those rye spices got muted, which reminds me of an Irish whiskey. I see what you're saying.
Okay. At least I'm not like way out there. I'm in left field. I'm not somewhere in like the woods behind the entire ballpark.
You're within the home run fence for sure. So that's what's important.
I'm keeping it in play, guys. I'm keeping it in play. You know?
Absolutely. There is still some rye to it, especially at the end as the cigar fades away. You still get some of those herbs, some of that baking spice. The cigar, on the other hand, when you go straight to it from the rye, pretty different. I'm gonna do it one more time because I wasn't paying enough attention last time.
Oh, I feel like you just didn't want me to say, I'm going to translate this for you cigar guys out there. Whatever
Let
Chris
me
was about to say is stupid. No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't mean it like that. Let me take a shot, then you translate for my poor cigar terminology.
I'm just kidding. While he's puffing there, though, again, we've talked about it nearly every episode. For those of you that are not cigar guys, even, if you're not even a cigar guy, you should still be on the same level. Look at this burn line, barely any imperfections in this. I'm going to do it for the side camera here. I mean, it is nearly a flawless burn. And I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see it. We got to get some HD crazy cameras here, double HD, because that exists.
Yeah.
There it is. You can see a line kind of going through here. When you see the veins through the ash very consistently, I mean, that is a chef's kiss cigar right there.
All right, I'm gonna say something out of left field now. That way you get to translate for me.
Hey, I got left
Here's
field. You take right.
okay, I'll take right field. This is weird, okay? I don't think I would say this if it weren't for this pairing, but going straight from the rye to the cigar, there's a flavor that is a weird, almost berry fruit thing. It reminds me of if you've had a Tatiana Groovy Blue, which has an intentional kind of a, oh no, I hope I didn't open up a sore spot. But that's what it reminds me of.
I I actually agree with where you were going. The Tatiana, in my opinion, is a bit far, but probably like the Irish whiskey was a bit far. Um, I mean, like when I smoke a Tatiana, and I haven't had one in probably 2 years, so maybe I'm mistaken on this end. Maybe they've changed. I don't think they have. But I feel like I'm kind of back in like sixth grade smoking Smarties when I have when I have a Tatiana. Um, but I see where you're going. It's the total direction of where this cigar is headed. It's every any actually, I'll say any piece of pepper is kind of gone, which is
Big time.
weird because it's a rye.
Mm-hmm.
That's what shocked me on my initial reaction. Obviously I was a little focused on trying to figure out the whiskey, but on my initial reaction, the cigar, I recognized it immediately that the pepper is like gone. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if like the rye kind of kick that we've been talking about, not heavy, not harshness, like you said, but
Mm-hmm.
kind of the kick that it has in the cigar, a little pepper, they like eliminated each other. I don't know exactly what that would be called, but I think it's complementary, is what I would say.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. I think kind of like if you eat something really sweet and then you take a sip of a coffee, even if that coffee has cream and sugar in it, the coffee's suddenly really bitter. It's like the reverse of that, where the rye has so much of that rye spice that the cigar it's like gone almost. You don't taste that rye spice. It's very interesting. It's really cranked up the flavor of the cigar for me in a way that I'm a big fan of. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, this cigar has through these first two pairings. I think it's one of these cigars that we found a couple so far. I think the West Tampa Red was one of them. I'm trying to remember. I think the FP Habano. It's kind of like molding itself very well to what you're drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not trying to fight anything.
Right.
There's been no. I mean, thus far, obviously, we're only having three pairings here, and we've only gone through two. But I still feel like just having these two, I feel like you can still make that statement and say this cigar is going to be a cigar that plays well with a lot of different pairings out there, let alone or not just these whiskeys, all sorts of pairings. I can see this going phenomenally with, some root beer, a little Dr. Pepper action. You go to the cream soda pairing side, on these non-alcoholic sides, the cream soda, I think, with this could be a flavor bomb.
Yeah. We're gonna have to do some cream soda. I'm a huge fan of cream soda, actually. That's like one of my favorite non-whiskey beverages. Like as a treat, I love cream soda.
Cream soda is one of the most underrated pairings with cigars that I think works with nearly every single one.
Really, we're gonna have to
Nobody
do some of
talks
that
about it.
then.
Yeah,
Yeah, we gotta try that. That's underappreciated because nobody likes like not that nobody likes it. So many people don't even drink it. Like they don't
right.
know about it.
Yeah, I'll be the first to say I didn't know about it. Shout out to Thomas. I doubt you're listening, but Thomas from Drew Estate, I smoked one of these Cuban cigars from Monte Cristo, and he was like, "Try that with cream soda," and I was like, "All right, you know what? I'm gonna call you out. I haven't had cream soda in like 10 years, and I'm gonna do this in a post, and I'm gonna do it organically, and I'm not gonna edit it." And I was like, "All right, Cuban cigar with cream soda. Here we go." Money. I was like, "All right."
Really?
It
Well,
was
so
so yeah.
I heard, and maybe this is some folklore, that Cubans were originally blended to either taste like cream soda or pair with cream soda. That's what I heard back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah, when you
Back in
were
the
like,
day,
I
my
was crawling
pre-whiskey
around in the
days.
crib, and this other baby was like, "Hey, baby."
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
because we're like 80 years old. But no, I have not heard that, but that doesn't mean it's not true.
Well,
That's
now we
all
need
I'll
to
say.
look it up and make it a true or false, is what we need to do. True or false trivia question.
Trivia question. That's like 301.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty specific. Yeah. One last thing, one last thing before we move on to this next one. If my voice doesn't give out on me here, the every once in a while, like every like fifth puff of this cigar, I'm noticing like a perfumey smell to it, like a perfumey on the retrohale, kind of. I don't know what else to say other than perfumey, or maybe floral. Maybe floral is a better word for that than
Yeah,
perfumey.
I would agree with that. I think I think this cigar is very the word again, my kind of the way I've always done my education, I guess, around cigar recommendations is less on specific flavors, but more on like the verbiage. This cigar I
Hmm.
would classify as approachable.
Hmm.
I would
Yes.
say there's nothing about it that when you go ahead and try it that you're gonna go, like I think if you're a beginner cigar smoker or an experienced cigar smoker, if you only smoke Connecticut's or if you only smoke the darkest Maduros you've ever seen, I think you're still gonna be able to appreciate this cigar. I think
Yeah.
on all levels, it's just approachable and it's a cigar that I think's, I mean, worth smoking. I enjoy it right now. I've been on and off and I've been intrigued by how it's smoked and the flavors and I think this pairing experience has kind of opened it up for me because I
Hmm.
haven't done a lot of pairings with it. I've just had it by itself and water or something. I think it's kind of opened up what the cigar is about. And
Hmm.
it's about, I mean, if you look up why Luciano blended this cigar, it's about bringing people together. So talk about approachable. I mean, great job, Luciano. You nailed it.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said there. What it was reminding me of actually was it's kind of like if I am on a more punchy cigar kick, but I'm not in the mood to be punched. And so it's like I don't really want to go to like a light cigar. Like that's going to be too boring for me right now. But also there's no way I can do with something that's just super dark and punchy. This is like a real nice, it's approachable but still has a little bit of kick that's like interesting.
I definitely need to have it with a morning coffee, black.
Oh yeah.
I'm think that's kind of where like, and that's how I've traditionally done my pairings until we joined forces and decided to try and really open up this world with pairings. I've
Mhm.
always kind of I start I start with the cigar because that's what I know, and my palate always tells me what it wants. Like
Mhm.
it's craving something, and right now, like it just was like you want coffee. Like you really want coffee right now. And if it wasn't, what time is it? It's here at 7 o'clock. Maybe I would have one after this, but I'm not because I want to sleep.
Yeah, no, you're right on though. If you had that little bit of bitterness, maybe even just a piece of dark chocolate or something to go with it,
Yep.
that would really be, I think that would go really well with this. Now, diving into pairing number three, which I cheated. I tried a little bit of it just now while you were talking. We've got Barrel's Foundation Bourbon. This is a bottle I was really excited about because this was Barrel's first non-cask strength bottle because they do a lot of
I
cask
lost you
strength
there.
stuff. Uh-oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, this is a this is what
Okay,
happened.
okay. I
So you can
will,
do this as a bottle.
yes, I will start right back there. So, this is a bottle. Let me get it in front of the camera here. This is a bottle that I was really excited about when it came out because it was Barrel's first non-cask strength bottle that they do cut down to exactly 100 proof. And the reason they did that was to make it a little bit more affordable. They were actually releasing it or getting ready to release it while I was at their new blending facility, so I got to see it and they explained that to me. So I was really excited about it. Now, you
Nice.
probably just tasted, you just made a face. I'm wondering if you just tasted the thing that I tasted with this pairing. I have a very specific thing I want to say about it, but you want me to just jump out and try it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, okay. I only did one puff, one sip, one puff, but this is what I got right away. The cigar going to the bourbon, it made it like sweet and pop and tons of flavor. Um, Something that I haven't put my finger on yet, a different note with the bourbon. The downside And this might have been that I was puffing the cigar too much, because I did start to get, I'll put it in front of the camera here. I started to get a little bit of like of a black ring around, like I was smoking a little bit too fast. I came back to it and it tasted a little bit charred. It tasted a little bit burnt. Um, but I'm curious what you're getting from it.
Here's something that I'll do real quick. A little education for you and everybody out there. If you get that a little bit on a cigar, you think you may be smoking too fast. This is called purging the cigar. Blow out into the cigar like you're blowing through a whistle. So like
Okay.
it will purify. It'll get rid of those impurities in the cigar. And there's a fun fact. I don't think, for some reason, I don't know, maybe your cigar was about to go out. When it's about to go out but you save it, that's usually when it starts to tunnel. So like you're only really burning the inside
Mm-hmm.
rather than not the wrapper.
Thumbs up.
These bubbles, man, the StreamYard.
Yeah.
But when you're burning just the inside, you can get that charred flavor, charred taste. If
Mm-hmm.
you ever, this is kind of going way advanced, but if you're ever smoking in the car and you have all the windows down, or you have a convertible like I do, and you put the top down, the wind will usually make the cigar tunnel if it's too much, because it's overheating that inside and not getting the wrapper. So what you're getting is probably pure. Well, it is a little off-putting because of the burn. The burn is off,
Mm-hmm.
but also you're getting like pure filler rather than the flavor. Most of the flavor from a cigar comes from the wrapper. Wink,
Right.
wink. That was my original quiz trivia question of the week. So
Oh, okay.
stay tuned, guys. For those of you, you'll know. But that's what could have been happening there. So maybe go ahead and just, I don't know if you did, I wasn't watching, but just touch up the outside a little bit. Maybe
Okay.
that'll help, because I got something completely different.
Okay, good to know. And also my ash hasn't moved for like a little while, so you're probably right that it's tunneling a little bit.
Yeah. So spin it. Don't overburn the outside, but let the heat do the work, not the flame. But and maybe I can hit the note for you, because I was getting it out of both,
Ooh.
that the whiskey was coming out of, or that you had coming out of the whiskey,
Mm-hmm.
caramel.
Yes, strong caramel.
Strong.
Like, oh, ash fell. That's the worst.
My nuts are on fire. No, I'm just kidding.
Dude, it's the worst when that happens.
Oh, well,
No,
luckily these chairs have been ashed on plenty of times.
that you're totally right about the bourbon. So now I'm excited to try the cigar again without kind of overburning it here, and see if I get that now. Because that in the bourbon, totally strong caramel.
I'm getting a very harmonious caramel flavor here. Like they're it's complementary, right? Because I think both are being elevated here, but we're gonna have like a long list of words by the end of this thing. I feel like they're harmonizing. They're coming together. Like both are being elevated, but at the same time they're like merging. I don't know what we're gonna call that in terms of like pairing types, but we'll have to talk to Luciano about it. By the way, for all of you that may have missed I think the first episode may have been the only episode we mentioned the
Mm-hmm.
types of pairings on. Right now, where we're at, you have neutral pairings, which neither of them are doing anything to each other, and it's weird. But Luciano Morales of Luciano Cigars, clearly, he was the one that came up with these ideas originally. If you are in the Perfect Pairing Club, you have access to our behind the scenes, it's never been released, hour-long conversation where we were thinking about releasing it through a podcast. We didn't know what to do, but now you guys can get it through the Perfect Pairing Club. Conversation around pairings. Exactly what is a pairing? How can you approach them? Demystifying the whole thing. He was the one that came up with complementary pairings where both are being elevated, antagonistic pairings where one is remaining the same and one is being elevated or decreased, And then ultra pairing where you have both of them and you're getting a brand new flavor, which I guess now that I say it, maybe this is an ultra pairing right here.
You might be right. You might be right because I was thinking, I'm like, this is like more straightforward of a like, whoa, what just happened to both of these than a typical complementary pairing.
Yep.
This is like something very obvious has fundamentally changed about the flavor, especially of the whiskey, for
Yeah.
sure.
Agreed. Now, what's going on with the cigar? Are you getting a little bit more of what we were talking about or no?
Yes, so that touch up helped it a lot. Got rid of that charred flavor. I purged it right before I tasted it, and it got rid of that weird like licking a charred piece of wood from yesterday's fire flavor that I had. So
Golf clap.
yeah, I'm glad this wasn't extremely antagonistic, which is what I thought it was at first.
Yeah. But that's a
So
good, I think that's a great example of, if you guys are out there and you're a cigar noob or a whiskey noob, I'm sure there's things that I've done that have probably screwed up these pairings in a way. Not today, but like I mean maybe today, but I'm just saying in general that have
mhm.
kind of misconstrued the whiskey on my palate. So just remember that, guys, as you're going through this, as you learn, if you're learning the cigar side, maybe go back to some pairings where you were like, maybe that wasn't what I thought because I didn't get what Chris and Adam were talking about. Maybe it was because the cigar was tunneling. Maybe it was because, I don't know what a common mistake is in whiskey, but one of those mistakes.
Right. I mean, it can even be like, especially if it's not what one of us is saying, maybe one of us had hot sauce on their dinner and like our palates are just messed up. Like stuff like that happens all the time. I've tried
100%.
whiskeys and been like, this is terrible. And then I try it a week later and I'm like, oh, this is like really good. Like what happened? It just
We
happens.
we have to have Luciano on as maybe one of our first guests on this podcast because he goes in so depth and such crazy depth with this because he talks about like if did you have Advil today? It dulls your senses because it dulls pain, so
Interesting.
it dulls senses, so you can't taste the same.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Luciano, he talks about those things where I guess I think it's an enzyme. I can't remember exactly what he said it was. It was a sign. It was a biological thing in your stomach. It's not an enzyme. I don't know exactly what it is. Luciano, if you know what it is, please comment below if you're listening, watching, whatever. Um, but I'll ask him and maybe I'll put it in the show notes somehow in the YouTube and stuff. But there's like 50% of the population has one certain like enzyme in their stomach that changes their flavor from the other 50% of the population. So like that's what makes pairing so complex is the taste buds are so different for everybody. And that's the smallest sneak peek into what our conversation was like when we had that behind the scenes conversation about pairings. I mean, that's why it's such a mystery, is because it's very hard to pinpoint things. But what he has been able to do and what we talked about was some overall principles that are, in a way, absolute truths for pairings to where you can start on the ground and you can move forward from these spots. And that's why Chris and I try and mention antagonistic and complementary, because you can work from that and say, well, okay, here's where I'm going to shift left and right and figure it out. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
No,
so fun.
100%. 100% spot on. No, because I mean, I've had people ask me, like, oh, recommend me a cigar and whiskey pairing. And I always say, I would need to ask you a few questions just to recommend you a good whiskey pairing. I'd need to ask you more questions to recommend you a good cigar pairing. And I could recommend you both of those, and then you try them together and you don't like them at all. So it's
100%.
there's so much going on there's so much going on with what type of whiskey you like and then with what type of cigar you like, and then it's like exponential when you combine the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, to keep myself honest, I wrote down my ratings.
Okay.
And
I
I
just started back
tasted.
through.
Did you? Yeah, I just went back through and I was like, and I'm not gonna lie, I bumped every number when I went back through. I was like, okay, these are these are decent pairings. Even the one that I had that came in third, if somebody handed me it, I wouldn't be upset at all.
No, I don't think we had a bad pairing today.
I agree.
It goes
Yeah,
back to that cigar. I think this cigar is very flexible. And that's kind of the term I'm going to use is it's flexible because it can bend to whatever you're drinking.
definitely. I mean, the cigar with the Lodestar, totally different cigar than with the barrel. Like it tastes like two different cigars, genuinely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll run through my rankings so that I give you a little bit of time to do your tasting here. I have in third place, I have Lodestar, which great whiskey, great cigar, but I know that this whiskey could have more complexity to it with a different cigar. Not all of it, but a lot of the good complexity that I love was a little bit muted by the pairing. So I put that in third. And then I think it's kind of obvious what came in first. So second place was then Green River Rye, which was a really good pairing, but the Barrel Foundation pairing was just something totally different for me. That was like it just brought out a flavor in both of them that was crazy.
No, I agree. It's tough. I'm gonna take one more sip of the Lodestar here.
Okay,
Um, but I would take every single one of these. If you offered it, I would be like,
definitely.
oh yeah, let's do that for sure. That works.
Hmm.
Any of these three. I think it'll come out in our ratings, in the numbers that we put out. Like you guys, I don't know what yours are, but that's what I was thinking about when I was
Hmm.
trying to figure out these rankings here. And I always, for whatever reason, I'm a visual guy, so I keep staring at them like they're my buddies over here. I'm like, hey
I do
man,
the same thing.
like I'm like looking at them like, yeah man, all right, I get you, Lodestar. I get what you're saying, but Green River's got a good argument here, okay? And
Right.
you know what, Barrel, just stay out of this. You're making things too complex. You already won. Like, get out of here. Like,
Right.
like
I totally get it.
yeah, that's totally. Just so you guys know, if Chris and I are looking off in the distance, we're not like, man, I really need to tie my shoe right now. Like, that's not what we're looking at.
Yeah, good point. If anybody watches Whiskey Noobs on YouTube, they should know that because anytime I do my Q&A episodes and people are like, recommend three blank, I'm always like just like staring off the screen the whole time because I'm staring at my shelf, like, okay, which bourbon am I recommending today? So yeah, it's
All
helpful
right,
though.
I it was really close on the Lodestar and the Green River. Really
Okay.
close. I had to go back and forth and back and forth. I agree with you on the ratings or the rankings. I got Lodestar in third, Green River in second, Barrel number one. But it's so close that Lodestar and Green River are neck and neck. It's almost like what are you looking for?
Hmm.
Like
Yep.
the rye, the complexity, spiciness. It's just such a complex. Those two are so close.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point that I should kind of have as a disclosure for my ratings as well. I think these are all very subjective, especially today, because, like I said, the cigar is very different with each of these. So, depending on which experience sounded the best to you, is going to depend on which pairing you would like the most. To kind of run through my thoughts, the Lodestar is like, I want something sweet to sip on, and I want the cigar to taste nice and sweet and vanilla with some baking spice. The Green River is like, I want something a little bit more challenging to sip on, and I want the cigar to have this really deep sweetness, a little bit less of that spice. And then the barrel is, I mean, you said it with caramel. It's like I want these both to taste like caramel.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
the barrel pairing.
All right. So I'll start off with the ratings since you started off with the rankings here. I'm gonna go from the bottom. We'll start with Lodestar. Lodestar is a 7.7
Okay, let
for
me type
me.
that in.
It's right. It's just like I was thinking 7 point like 3 4, but then I was like, no. If you look at like 3/4, right? That's 7.5. I was like, it's above 3/4. If go to as basic as you can get, like if we were talking like out of 100, it gets complicated. So like you go as minuscule as you can. At least that's the way I approach ratings. It's above 3/4. Like I think, in my opinion, if there's 3/4 of the pairings out in the world with this cigar, it's above that.
Oh, you have me wanting to change my answer, but I won't. I won't. I'm gonna
It's my
stay honest.
mathematical mind, man.
Yeah, it makes sense. I put a 7.1. Now I'm wondering, oh, maybe 7.5 makes sense. But I made sure it had to be in the sevens because this is a pairing that if you handed me it, I'd be like, sweet, thank you. Like this is a good pairing. It totally is.
Yep. I mean, that makes sense. There's such a small scale between 7.7 and 7.1. So
Yeah.
you don't have to get too stressed about it. But
All right.
here's where I'm going with my Green River. 7.8.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, they were that close for me. And it's just like literally per mood, per day, per hour, per minute, per food I'm having. They're that close.
Yeah. No, I think you're right on. I'm right next to you. I got 8.1 for Green River because I thought this is one that I would be pretty excited about if you handed it to me. The Lodestar I'd be happy with. I would That's a great pairing. The Green River just did something extra to that cigar, that berry flavor, that weird. I really enjoyed that.
Yep. Ooh, finally. This was a tough one on this barrel, but in my opinion, leave yours where it is. Don't change it. In my opinion, this is not above a 9.
Ooh, okay.
I would take it in a heartbeat, but I don't think that I would take it over anything. I do believe there's something that is better out there, but it's an 8.8.
Oh, okay. That's a good one. No, I'm once again very close to you. I've got 9.3. And I can tell you right now
Ooh,
why. That caramel note, and OG Whiskey Noobs listeners will know this. That caramel note is like, for me, that is the bourbon flavor that I love. The way that it made the barrel taste for me is like one of my favorite types of bourbon to just sit down and drink. So that was right in my wheelhouse.
money. Well, I know this has been a little longer episode for everybody out there, so we'll go ahead and close it off as Chris and I go off screen and try and figure out, how these pairings should have been instead of our rate. No, I'm just kidding.
But not
um,
before you tell everybody about your trivia question.
the trivia question. Yes, yes, yes. The three parts of a cigar. You have the wrapper, which is, by the way, one tobacco leaf on the very outer layer of your cigar. So it's one leaf. And then you have the binder, which can be one, or sometimes there's a double binder. It's kind of complex, but it's a little rough looking. If you ever dissect a cigar, it's pretty easy to take off the wrapper. You'll see the rough looking binder. You take that off, and then you see the filler. The filler, typically, you will see what's called an estrujado roll on the tobacco of the filler, which is accordion style. That's going to be another. See, I need to write these down so I don't
You
just
do need to
unveil
write these
all of
down.
these.
That's a 301 level question right
That's
there.
a 301 level question. Now, like 501, 601, 7, like just 1,000 level question is, why do people use the accordion style fold on the middle? I'll leave that for you guys for maybe a month from now. Maybe it'll be next episode. I guess you'll have to tune in.
All right. I want to know now because I don't know. So we'll see.
Perfect. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you didn't get this cigar, make sure you use our code on shopdreamercigars.com. PPP10 gives you 10% off the Perfect Pairing Club, where we send you 4 or 5 cigars a month. Comes out to less than $7 per cigar. You can't get it good enough in terms of trying new cigars out there. It's just the most affordable way to do it. That's the way we've set it up. Chris, man, this has been a great cigar, great pairing. Cheers to Luciano, man. What a great cigar.
Cheers. Agreed.